Hey everyone, and welcome back to Auto Wisdom. Today I have the privilege of sitting behind the wheel of this lovely 2024 Volkswagen MK8 generation Golf GTI Autobahn trim. I think it's safe to say that the Golf GTI is one of the world's most sporty and iconic hatchbacks, and this MK8 generation is of no exception. So what does the Autobahn trim get you? Well, you get some 19-inch wheels that look quite nice and really help to add to that sporty flair that this vehicle has. You get some 235 wide summer performance tires, an electronically controlled limited slip differential, which is actually standard across all the trims. You get more premium amenities and comfort features throughout the interior of the vehicle, including these nice plush leather bucket seats. And most notably, you get adaptive dampers, which is new to the Golf GTI. This particular vehicle is finished off in a lovely shade of Moonstone Gray over this gray and black leather interior, and it's very minimalistic and it's very simplistic, but we will be touching on some of the interior gripes, the pros and cons, a little bit later on in this review. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take this thing for a drive. All right, so I've currently got the vehicle in Sport. And yeah, this thing gets up. Power is sourced from a 2-liter turbocharged EA888 motor. It is very well known and familiar across the entire Volkswagen and Audi lineup. And that is good for 241 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque in this particular GTI. Now the GTI is a front-wheel drive vehicle, and thankfully for this generation across all trims, we do get a standard equipped electronically controlled limited slip differential, which does a great job at assisting with overall power output and helping to put the power down. Now that power is sent through a 7-speed DSG dual clutch automatic transmission, and it's very snappy, and it gets up with ease. It actually makes this car feel quicker than it actually is on paper. And I think relative to the 6-speed manual, while that may prove to be a little bit more engaging, the DSG gearbox really pairs up well with the overall character and torquey nature of this engine. Sounds pretty good too. It's not the most charismatic sounding engine. There are definitely other 4-cylinders out there that rev a lot higher, that have a little more pitch to the induction and exhaust note. This is a little bit bland, but the way that Volkswagen has tuned the setup with a little bit of overrun as well on the downshifts coming out of the exhaust, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Really am enjoying this transmission. It's so quick on the upshifts and the downshifts as well. Rev matches perfectly. The paddle response is very fast and seamless, and it really doesn't upset the power band in any way. Now, it may not be as engaging as perhaps some other dual clutch transmissions on the market, but it gets through the power band with ease, and like I said, really just helps to propel this car into illegal speeds. The adaptive dampers also do a good job of providing a nice amount of body control to this car. Given the fact that this is currently in sport mode and the dampers are in the sportiest setting, they're not overly damped. The suspension is not overly stiff by any means. Volkswagen definitely knew when tuning the dampers of the vehicle that this is primarily a street car and owners are not really going to be taking this to the track all that often. And so you get a nice blend of comfort and sporty driving dynamics. You can definitely tell that this has a sport-tuned suspension, but in no way is it overly jarring on the road to the point where it would be uncomfortable for yourself or the passengers that you are taking along for the ride. And really not a ton of body roll. I'm also really pleased with the brakes. This car does get the prior generation Golf R's brake calipers and rotors up in the front. So in terms of braking power, it does feel sufficient, although I'm not entirely sure on the track. You'd probably want to upgrade to a more aggressive compound with some upgraded brake fluid as well. And there was a decent amount of weight reduction in terms of unsprung mass with the introduction of an aluminum front subframe to the Mark 8 generation of the GTI. We also get completely new bushings. Some of the suspension geometry has been tweaked to aid in better road handling dynamics and a sportier drive without really compromising on the overall ride quality of this vehicle. And we also get an oil cooler for the E8888 2-liter 4-cylinder. So on the track, that should definitely help with managing temps overall. And this thing gets up. It is a quick car, guys. I'm really impressed. Because for 241 horsepower, and I suppose with the 273 pound-feet of torque, it feels like it's just got power on demand, especially in the sport mode where the throttle response has really been sharpened. It feels awesome, and it's a very peppy car. You really feel like you can zip around quite effortlessly through city traffic. If you guys have seen the Audi S3 video, which I'll throw a card to up at the top of this screen, that I had reviewed about a year ago, this does draw a lot of similarities. I mean, it's based on the same MQB architecture, except whereas the S3 kind of shares a lot of similarities with the Golf R, given that it's all-wheel drive and it's a Haldex-styled all-wheel drive system. This is obviously front-wheel drive. Thankfully, on the street, I'm not detecting a whole lot of understeer, and it really does feel like the car has a lot of grip as you kind of throw it into a corner. And I do feel like the chassis has been improved quite a bit from a dynamic standpoint. It just feels very composed, it feels very confident, and it is surprisingly fun to drive for a German econobox of the modern era. Really like that induction sound. I think it is artificially induced, but they've done a decent job with making it sound pretty good. From the driver's seat, the overall visibility is great, especially from the outward view. The A-pillars are not particularly obtrusive to your view and your vision as you're driving in a spirited manner. I do really like how clear-cut the digital gauge cluster is, particularly in this sport mode. On the left, I have my temperature displays. In the center, I have a nice and large tachometer that shows the gear that I'm in. And then on the right, I also see the drive mode as well as the gear that the DSG is in at the current time. And these bucket seats are extremely comfortable. They really help to bolster you in well, particularly on the sides where your torso is. And even the thigh bolstering is fairly aggressive. When you sit in them, you feel relaxed. You don't feel like your back is going to start aching up or your bottom. Very, very comfortable to sit in. And it really kind of aids in the dual personality of this car, where it can kind of really deliver that sports car, sporty hatchback vibe, but also totally be a mundane cruiser when you just want to chill out and drive to work or to the store and back. Now, this infotainment system, unfortunately, is quite a mess. Really not a fan of this minimalist design. From an aesthetic standpoint, it looks great. Don't get me wrong. The graphics of all the screens look phenomenal. I do like the minimal use of buttons, but it becomes problematic when you start to realize that this infotainment system does not feel super intuitive or ergonomically fleshed out. And trying to navigate through basic functions within the infotainment system is just a pain, especially while you're driving. It really is distracting. You're constantly having to look down at the screen itself. And I really think from a safety standpoint, it's not ideal. And also just from like an overall user satisfaction standpoint of the infotainment system, it's annoying. I don't like getting through to like the climate control unit. I don't really like having to access the driving modes. It's kind of a pain in the ass, and I do wish Volkswagen would have done a better job with implementing maybe some like shortcut buttons, or just making the infotainment system a little more user-friendly. Yeah, this thing pulls hard. Overall, I'm a fan of this car. While I do think it is particularly devoid of a lot of steering feel, given this EPS unit, it's pretty numb in that regard. It is relatively engaging outside of that, and again, a big part of that is due to this engine and transmission combination, plus the limited slip differential up at the front axle. Really not a fan of the infotainment system, but overall the rest of the interior is clean, it's ergonomic, it's classy, and it's not trying to, boast anything all that special or be show-offy, which I can really appreciate from some of the German manufacturers. I think they do a really good job with that. And finally, I do want to give some credit to the Mark 8's exterior design. While it is subjective in a lot of regards, I do think the overall design of this car is very, very appealing. It's very pleasing to look at from pretty much every single angle, and I love the slightly angrier front fascia that this car has with those sleek LED daytime running lamps. It really makes for a good looking car overall without feeling like it has been aggressively overstyled. I really do like the subtle yet aggressive, if you know kind of design to this car. And overall, I do think with this generation, Volkswagen has succeeded quite well in carrying on the legacy of the GTI. That is going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, please go ahead and make sure to leave a like on the video, as well as subscribe to the channel down below if you are new here. With all that being said, I will catch you all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.